The music was loud, but the silence around her was louder. A little girl sat alone in a wheelchair at the edge of the dance floor. Her sparkling dress never moved. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. Children danced past her without looking. Parents looked away. Then the janitor stopped sweeping. He slowly walked toward her, knelt to her eye level, and smiled. "May I have this dance?" He didn't know her name, he didn't know her story, and he didn't know that from the balcony above, a billionaire mother was watching. One simple moment of kindness was about to change 3 lives forever. The ballroom glittered like a dream meant for other people. Crystal chandeliers spilled light onto marble floors so polished they reflected the ceiling like water. Music floated through the air, soft at first, then swelling into something joyful and alive. This was not the kind of place where a man like Daniel belonged. Daniel Reyes pushed his cleaning cart along the wall, eyes lowered, movements careful. He had learned long ago how to make himself invisible. Scuffed black shoes, faded blue janitor's uniform, a name badge no one ever read. He wasn't here to celebrate. He was here to clean up after everyone else did. Daniel worked nights at the Grand Aurora Hotel, a place where charity galas and elite school events blurred together. Tonight was a private children's fundraiser. Wealthy families, elegant dresses, laughter that came easily. The kind of laughter Daniel remembered from another life. Before hospital bills, before funeral costs, before learning how heavy grief could be. He paused near the edge of the dance floor, pretending to adjust a trash liner, though there was nothing inside it yet. His eyes drifted, not with envy, but with quiet observation. Children spun in bright dresses. Parents clapped, phones raised, capturing memories they assumed would last forever. Daniel swallowed. His own daughter, Sophia, was asleep in their small apartment across town. 8 years old. Homework spread across the kitchen table. Shoes by the door. A half-finished drawing waiting for him on the fridge. He worked these extra shifts so she wouldn't have to notice how thin the margins of their life had become. "Just a little longer," he whispered to himself, a phrase he repeated every night. That was when he saw her. She sat apart from the crowd, near the far wall where the music faded into echoes. A little girl in a wheelchair, her dress pale silver, shimmering softly under the lights. Her feet rested still, her hands folded neatly in her lap, fingers twisting just enough to betray the effort it took to remain composed. She wasn't crying. That somehow made it worse. Daniel slowed his steps without realizing it. His cart rolled ahead, bumping gently into his leg. He stopped it, heart tightening. People walked past her. Children glanced, then looked away. Parents guided their kids in the opposite direction with polite smiles and quiet urgency. No cruelty, no mockery, just absence. Daniel felt something crack open inside him. He had seen that look before, the look of being present, yet unseen. He glanced around instinctively, toward the supervisors, the event coordinators, anyone who might remind him of his place. This was not his job. He wasn't supposed to interact. He was supposed to clean. But his feet moved anyway. Slowly, carefully, as if approaching a fragile thing that might break if startled. He stopped a few feet from her, then crouched slightly, unsure. The girl noticed him then, her eyes lifting with cautious curiosity. They were bright, intelligent, older than her years. Daniel knelt fully, lowering himself until they were eye level. "Hi," he said softly, voice steady but gentle. She didn't respond, just watched him. "My name's Daniel," he continued, offering a small smile. "I'm part of the cleanup crew." The corner of her mouth twitched, almost a smile. Daniel glanced at the dance floor, then back to her. He could feel the weight of the moment, the invisible rules pressing down. Adults didn't do this. Men in uniforms especially didn't do this. But fathers did. "Would you like to dance?" he asked. The words surprised even him. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but disbelief. "I can't," she said quietly. Her voice was soft, practiced, as though she had said those words many times before. Daniel nodded, not missing a beat. "That's okay," he replied. "I'm terrible at it." That earned a small laugh, a real one. He stood, locked the wheel of her chair gently, then extended his hand, not pulling, not lifting, just offering. "We can sway," he said. "That's what I do best." She hesitated. Her gaze flickered past him, toward the crowd, then upward, toward the balcony above, where shadows pooled between ornate railings. Someone was watching. But she looked back at Daniel and nodded. "Okay," she whispered. Daniel placed one hand lightly on the back of her wheelchair, the other holding hers. He moved slowly, guiding her into the rhythm of the music, a careful sway, left, right, barely noticeable. But to her, it was everything. Her shoulders relaxed, her grip loosened, her smile grew. And above them, behind tinted glass and quiet breath, a woman froze. Elena Whitmore had not intended to watch for long. She had arrived late, stood apart from the crowd, observing the event from the privacy of the balcony. This was business, appearances, donations. Her assistant hovered nearby with a tablet full of numbers. Then Elena saw the janitor kneel. She leaned forward, fingers tightening on the railing. Her daughter, her carefully protected world, and a stranger who didn't know who she was, who didn't know the price of a mistake, who didn't know that Elena Whitmore had built an empire by trusting no one. Yet, there he was, dancing. The janitor's simple gesture, asking the little girl to dance, had drawn her out of the shadows of her own solitude. Daniel felt a warmth he hadn't allowed himself in years, a quiet satisfaction that came from giving someone something intangible, attention, care, and acknowledgement. The girl, whose name he would soon learn was Lily, allowed herself to lean slightly into his sway, her fingers tightening for just a moment on his hand, then loosening. The music seemed to stretch, slowed by the weight of the world they both carried, and yet in that tiny moment, it became their world alone. Daniel's eyes drifted over her face, taking in the careful composure, the intelligent gaze behind her wide, curious eyes. There was a story here, one that no uniform or mop could clean, a story written in absence and careful boundaries. He felt the same ache he knew all too well. He had lost his wife 2 years ago, taken in the hospital's silent hours, and now he carried the dual burdens of grief and responsibility like invisible bricks pressing against his chest. Life had been nothing but schedules and survival since. Yet here was Lily, demonstrating a quiet courage he recognized immediately, an inner strength shaped by a different kind of loss. Meanwhile, above, Elena Whitmore stood rigidly, the world of wealth and control she inhabited suddenly irrelevant. Her daughter, Lily, had been hidden from the public eye since birth. Elena had worked tirelessly to shield her from unwanted attention and intrusion, aware of her vulnerability and yet unable to grant her the freedom she craved. Watching this man, this janitor, interact with Lily without knowing who she was, Elena felt something unfamiliar stir within her. Trust. She wasn't supposed to trust anyone, especially not strangers in a place filled with the polished and privileged. Yet Daniel's warmth, his quiet attentiveness, and his unwavering gaze spoke a language Elena herself had almost forgotten: authenticity. Daniel continued to sway with Lily gently. "You're doing amazing," he whispered, careful not to overwhelm her. "It's okay to just move however you like. No one's judging." Lily's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. For the first time in a long while, she felt the freedom to exist without rules, without the invisible walls her mother's wealth had built around her. The music faded around them as the dance drew on, the room's laughter and chatter blending into background noise, unimportant, distant. From the balcony, Elena's heart ached with something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. She remembered a night from her own childhood, lonely, abandoned by her parents' ambitions, hidden from her peers. She had built her empire on control, structure, and careful calculation, believing that love could be measured in security, luxury, and the absence of risk. And yet, here she was, watching a stranger offer her daughter something she had always struggled to provide: genuine connection, a bridge between worlds she had long separated. Meanwhile, Daniel's hands guided Lily's gently, respecting her space, never pressing too hard. "I know it's not much, but I think dancing is a way of saying you're not alone, even when it feels like everyone is too busy to notice or too wrapped up in their own lives." He caught a flash of emotion in her eyes, fear, longing, hope, all mingled in a complex way that he didn't need to name aloud. He simply swayed, and she allowed herself to be carried by it. "Why do you care?" she asked in a whisper, the kind that cracks the silence like delicate glass. Her eyes studied him, searching for deception, for pity, for reason, but she found none, only genuine warmth. Daniel paused, considering his response carefully. Because sometimes people need someone to notice them, someone to remember that they're here, that they matter. And, well, maybe I see a bit of my own daughter in you. He glanced briefly toward the balcony, knowing nothing of who might be watching, nothing of the world that Lily came from. His words were simple, human, and honest. That was enough. Lily's lips curved wider, a mix of laughter and relief bubbling up. She had not been touched in this way before, not in the sense of being fully seen. Her life, framed by wealth and protection, had given her every comfort except the freedom to be noticed for her own spirit, rather than her condition or her mother's name. Tonight, in the presence of a man who had no reason to care, she was finally allowed to exist simply as herself. Daniel's eyes softened as he studied her. He had always thought his life was small, bounded by his job, his apartment, and the obligations that had followed him like shadows. But in this moment, it stretched beyond those limits, expanded by the simple act of connection. It reminded him that life's significance isn't measured by wealth, fame, or title. It is measured in these fleeting, human intersections. The room around them could have been filled with kings and queens, celebrities, billionaires. It didn't matter. Here, a man, a child, and a brief moment of trust were the entire universe. Above, Elena's resolve began to crumble. She realized she had been watching the wrong things for years. Numbers, reports, public image, the currency of influence. True influence, she now saw, was unforced. It could not be bought, controlled, or manufactured. Watching Daniel and Lily, she felt a mixture of fear and awe, the fear of losing control, and awe at the purity of human kindness untainted by wealth. She wanted to reach out, to intervene, to ensure her daughter's safety, but she hesitated. Something inside told her to wait, to see how this unfolded naturally. As the song came to an end, Daniel gently slowed their movements and guided Lily to a stop. Her hands lingered in his just a moment longer than necessary, reluctant to let go. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes shining. Daniel smiled softly, heart warmed but heavy with the reality that their time together was fleeting. "Any time," he replied. "If you ever need someone to notice you, well, maybe I can help again." He did not say the words aloud, but in his mind he silently promised to make sure she would never feel invisible again.
Elena exhaled slowly, her hands loosening on the balcony railing. She realized the simple truth. Her daughter's world had been expanded tonight by someone she never would have expected. And for the first time in years, she felt that fragile, thrilling emotion she thought she had lost: hope.
The evening continued around them, yet for Daniel and Lily, time seemed to slow. The gala carried on, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, the soft chatter of children and parents alike, but they were insulated in their own quiet bubble. Daniel guided Lily's wheelchair to a slightly quieter corner near the grand piano, the polished wood reflecting the chandelier's light in gentle patterns. The music softened here, a subtle, almost forgotten melody that floated like a lullaby through the vast space. Lily's hands rested lightly on the armrests, her fingers brushing Daniel's when he gently repositioned her chair. "You always do this?" she asked, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Do what?" Daniel replied, tilting his head slightly, his voice calm, patient. "Notice people, the ones who are invisible." Her words were careful, as if she had practiced them in her mind 100 times. Daniel smiled faintly, a small nod of acknowledgement. "I guess I do," he admitted. "Someone has to. Otherwise, the world moves on too quickly, and people like you get forgotten." She studied him. There was no false pride, no desire for recognition in his eyes, only a steady, quiet truth. Lily had grown up surrounded by wealth, but always aware of its distance, its inability to bridge the gap between her desires and her mother's control. Tonight, this man had offered her something richer than all the gold and jewels in the room: genuine attention. Above them, Elena Whittemore remained frozen in place. She hadn't moved since the dance began, her gaze locked on the unexpected scene below. She had always tried to protect Lily with walls of money, education, and influence, but she could see now that no fortress could replicate the warmth of authentic human care. Her chest tightened as she observed the connection forming, a mixture of pride in her daughter's small acts of courage and fear at her own lack of control. Daniel shifted slightly, keeping his movements gentle. "You know," he said softly, "sometimes people are invisible not because everyone is too busy with their own lives to notice. I try to make time." Lily's lips curved in the faintest smile. "I think I like that," she said quietly. "I like being noticed." For the first time in a while, Daniel felt a flicker of hope. In the small bubble of quiet around the piano, he realized how fleeting moments like these were, yet how powerful. Life rarely offered pure, undistracted connection, and when it did, it felt sacred. Meanwhile, Elena's emotions grew more complicated. She remembered the early years of her career, the late nights spent signing contracts, negotiating acquisitions, building an empire. Her daughter had been safe, yes, but lonely, carefully shielded from scrutiny, isolated from peers, and never truly seen as a child beyond her mother's expectations. Watching Daniel with Lily forced Elena to confront her choices. Money could protect, but it could not nurture. It could not teach kindness, empathy, or courage. That lesson was unfolding below her, one gentle sway at a time. Daniel paused, glancing at Lily. "Do you like music?" he asked. She hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I love it," she admitted, "but I can't dance alone." He chuckled softly. "Then you don't have to. Not tonight. Not ever. We can make our own kind of dance." Lily laughed lightly, the sound soft and musical, and Daniel felt his chest lift. It was a sound that reached parts of him long buried, memories of his own daughter playing on the carpet at home, of her laughter echoing through the apartment, of small, stolen moments of joy he rarely allowed himself to enjoy. "You know," he continued, glancing so only she could hear, "dancing isn't just moving your body, It's letting someone share your world for a moment. And when that happens, the world feels a little less lonely. Lily considered his words, her eyes wide and thoughtful. Then, you're not lonely? She asked, her voice curious. Daniel hesitated, his mind flashing to the small apartment where Sophia waited. Sometimes I am, he admitted quietly, but tonight, I'm not. Not while I'm here with you. The girl's expression softened, a mixture of relief and wonder. She hadn't expected honesty, not from strangers, not from adults. The world was full of pretense, of polite smiles and distant sympathy. Daniel's openness was refreshing. It was real. It was human. From the balcony, Elena held her breath. She hadn't anticipated the flood of feelings that watching them would bring. Pride, guilt, awe, and longing all collided in her chest. She wanted to step down, to meet the janitor, to ensure her daughter's safety, but something held her back. She realized that tonight the lesson wasn't for her alone. It was for Lily. And for Lily to experience life beyond walls, she had to allow a little risk, a little unknown. Daniel continued to sway gently with Lily. "You have a brave heart," he said softly, not knowing the weight of his words. "Most people would have hidden, stayed quiet, but you're here, and you let someone notice you. That's courage." Lily's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I like dancing with you. Even if I can't walk, I feel free." Daniel smiled, a warmth spreading through him that he hadn't felt in years. It was the rare gift of seeing someone else's world open, even just a little, and knowing you had a part in it. Elena felt a pang of something unfamiliar, envy of Daniel's simple humanity. She had wealth, influence, security, but she had never been able to offer Lily this raw, genuine freedom. Watching this ordinary man extend his kindness, she realized her own attempts had been layered with strategy and caution. Tonight, she understood the true power of empathy, of human connection, and of letting someone be fully seen. As the night went on, Daniel guided Lily back towards the edge of the floor, allowing her to rest and simply enjoy the music. She leaned slightly towards him, and he adjusted her chair with gentle care. They didn't speak much after that. Words were unnecessary. Their presence alone, the quiet bond forming between them, spoke volumes. And above, Elena continued to watch, silently taking note, questioning and learning. She was witnessing a world she had tried to control for years, and realizing, perhaps for the first time, that life's most valuable lessons came from the smallest, simplest acts of humanity.
The gala continued to hum with music and chatter, but Daniel and Lily remained in their quiet orbit, connected by an invisible thread of trust and understanding. The world around them was distant, almost unreal, and yet every gesture, every glance carried immense weight. Daniel had learned to move carefully through life, as if each step might reveal the fragility beneath his exterior. But here, with Lily, caution was replaced by something simpler: presence. Pure, deliberate, compassionate presence. As they sat near the corner of the ballroom, Daniel adjusted the blankets over Lily's legs to keep her comfortable. "Do you get to come to events like this often?" he asked softly, careful not to pry too deeply. Lily shook her head, her expression a mix of resignation and longing. "Not really. Mom, she thinks people will hurt me, or that I'll get attention I'm not supposed to have." Her voice was small, almost a whisper, and Daniel felt the weight of it immediately. "I get that," he said, nodding slowly. "Sometimes people try to protect the ones they love by keeping them inside walls, but those walls, they can feel like cages too." She studied him, curious and cautious. "And you don't have walls?" Daniel chuckled softly, a shadow crossing his face. "I do. Everyone does, in one way or another. But my walls are different." They're about survival, not fear. I've lost things I couldn't protect, but I try to hold on to what I can. And tonight, I get to hold a little bit of someone else's world, too. Lily's gaze softened. There was a silent understanding forming, a bond built on vulnerability and honesty. For the first time in her life, she realized that not every adult was distant, controlling, or cautious. Some, like Daniel, could care without conditions, without ulterior motives. Meanwhile, from her vantage point on the balcony, Elena Whitmore's heart pounded. She had never seen anyone approach Lily with such unguarded kindness. Her daughter, the center of her carefully constructed universe, was being embraced, without wealth, without status, without obligation, by a man she had never noticed before tonight. Elena's mind raced with conflicting emotions: relief, fear, admiration, and a creeping recognition of her own failings. Daniel continued speaking gently, his voice a steady anchor in the room's chaos. You know, it's okay to feel lonely sometimes, but it's also okay to reach out. Even small gestures matter. A hand held, a smile shared, they can change the course of a day or a life. Lily blinked, absorbing the words with the seriousness of someone who had lived in carefully measured boundaries. I think I like that, she murmured. I've always wanted to dance, or just be noticed, without everyone watching me like a prize or a secret. Daniel smiled warmly. Then you've got it right now. No rules, no walls, no one's expectations, just you and me and the music. Elena's chest tightened as she watched from above. She had spent a lifetime controlling outcomes, shaping perceptions, and shielding her daughter, and yet this simple act, a man dancing with her child, offering nothing but genuine care, was teaching her something her money and power could never provide: trust, empathy, and the quiet power of connection. Daniel glanced down at Lily, his heart swelling with a quiet pride. He had spent years working in the background, cleaning floors, emptying trash, and making himself invisible. But tonight, he realized that the most meaningful work he could do was simply being present, offering kindness where it was needed most. Lily reached out, brushing her fingers against his hand lightly. "Thank you for noticing me," she whispered. Daniel's throat tightened. He nodded, swallowing back the lump of emotion threatening to break free. "It's my honor," he replied softly. "I'm glad I could." For a moment, the ballroom ceased to exist. The music, the laughter, the glittering chandeliers all faded into a blur. There was only Daniel and Lily, two souls connecting in a way that transcended circumstance, wealth, and expectation. Above, Elena realized she had been holding her breath. She exhaled slowly, tears threatening but unfallen. She had watched countless interactions, negotiations, and displays of wealth in her lifetime, but none had moved her like this simple human connection. She recognized that her daughter's world had just expanded, not through power or privilege, but through the purest form of kindness, a stranger who had seen her child as a person, not a possession. Daniel noticed the subtle shift in Lily's demeanor. Her shoulders relaxed, her smile became more genuine, and for the first time that night, she allowed herself to feel safe in someone else's presence. He understood without being told that moments like this were rare. They were gifts, fleeting, fragile, and infinitely precious. "Would you like to stay a little longer?" he asked gently. Lily nodded, her eyes sparkling. "Yes, please." Daniel adjusted her wheelchair slightly, guiding her back to a spot where the music could be felt more than heard. They swayed gently together, a rhythm that required no expertise, only presence and trust. In the quiet of that corner, they shared a language older than words,
older than wealth, older than fear. Elena remained on the balcony, watching with a mixture of awe and longing. She understood something profound. No amount of money or control could replicate what her daughter is experiencing right now. And yet she also realized that she could learn from this stranger, this janitor, about humanity, generosity, and the power of noticing the people who truly mattered. As the song came to a close, Daniel gently guided Lily back to her chair. "You were amazing," he said softly. "Thank you for letting me share this dance with you." Lily smiled widely, eyes shining. "Thank you for noticing me." Daniel's heart swelled with quiet satisfaction. He had come to the gala as an invisible figure, part of the background, unseen and unremarkable. But tonight, he had witnessed courage, offered connection, and shared a moment that neither he nor Lily would ever forget. Above, Elena Whitmore realized she had also witnessed something extraordinary, an unexpected lesson in trust, empathy, and the unmeasurable value of genuine human connection. And in that realization, Elena began to consider a future different from the one she had planned. A future where walls could be softened, where moments of vulnerability could be embraced, and where a simple dance could bridge worlds she had long separated.
The gala's final song began, a sweeping, lilting melody that filled the ballroom with a sense of anticipation. Daniel adjusted Lily's wheelchair one last time, making sure she was comfortable. Her small hands rested lightly on his, and for a moment, the world outside their shared bubble ceased to exist. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. "It's the kind of music that makes you forget everything else. Just for a moment, you can be anywhere, anyone." Lily's eyes glimmered, reflecting the chandelier light. "Anywhere, anyone. I like that," she whispered. Daniel smiled faintly, a mixture of joy and sorrow in his expression. He had learned over the years that moments like these were rare, like fragments of a dream that could shatter at the slightest misstep. But tonight, he allowed himself to believe. From the balcony above, Elena Whitmore watched silently. She had spent decades shielding her daughter, controlling every variable, ensuring safety and perfection. And yet, she realized the harsh truth. No walls could replace the warmth of genuine human connection. Watching Daniel interact with Lily, she saw a side of life she had almost forgotten, unplanned, authentic, imperfectly beautiful. Her heart tightened as she recalled the many nights she had spent absent from her Lily's life, busy negotiating contracts, attending board meetings, and managing empires. She had thought her wealth could substitute for her presence. But tonight, she recognized the emptiness of that belief. The janitor, a man of no title, no fame, no fortune, was giving her daughter something far more precious: attention, kindness, and the freedom to feel alive. Daniel gently guided Lily across the ballroom, swaying in time with the music. He had no idea that a billionaire was watching, analyzing every gesture, every smile, every careful motion. He didn't need to. His sincerity spoke for itself. "You're brave," Daniel said softly. "Even when it's hard. Most people would hide, but you choose to exist fully, even with the world telling you not to." Lily's lips quivered. "I try," she admitted, "but I'm scared sometimes." Daniel's eyes softened. "It's okay to be scared. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to move forward anyway. And you've been doing that your whole life, in ways most people couldn't imagine." Her fingers tightened slightly around his. "Do you think my mom would understand?" Daniel paused, unsure how much he should say. He hadn't seen her mother yet, hadn't been introduced, and yet he understood enough about human emotion to know the truth. Love is often hidden behind fear, walls, and control. "She will," he said carefully. "But she might need to see it the way I do, through your eyes. And tonight, she is." Elena Whitmore stepped forward, finally descending the balcony stairs. She moved quietly, purposefully, until she stood near the edge of the dance floor. Her presence was commanding, yet her eyes softened when they met Daniel's. She studied him, not the uniform, not the title, not the role, but the man himself. He was steady, sincere, and wholly focused on her daughter. "Daniel," she said, her voice gentle yet strong, I need to thank you." Daniel looked up, startled. You're... She gestured towards Lily. "My daughter. You've shown her something I could not. You've given her attention, kindness, and a freedom I feared I couldn't allow her. I see it now. I see what she needed, and I see what you've done." Daniel swallowed, his chest tightening. I just wanted her to feel seen. That's all. I didn't expect anything else." Elena stepped closer, her eyes moist. "And yet, that was enough. It's more than enough. You've given her a gift that no wealth could ever buy. And perhaps you've given me a gift as well. The reminder that love and presence matter more than control or protection." Lily looked between the two adults, her eyes shining with hope. She had never imagined a moment like this, a moment where her world could expand beyond the walls she had known. She felt seen, acknowledged, and free all at once. Daniel knelt slightly, looking into Lily's eyes. "You are incredible," he said softly. "Never forget that, no matter what anyone says. You matter. You are enough." Lily's smile grew, radiant and genuine. "Thank you," she whispered. Elena reached down, placing her hand lightly on Lily's shoulder. "You've been brave, my love, and tonight I've learned that sometimes letting someone else step in can show you the world in a new light. Daniel, thank you." Daniel nodded, a humble acknowledgement. "It was my honor, truly." The three of them stood together on the ballroom floor, a quiet triangle of connection that transcended social class, wealth, and circumstance. The music swelled around them, carrying the weight of new beginnings, understanding, and the fragile promise of trust. For the first time in years, Elena understood the truth she had always avoided. Protection alone could not nurture the soul. Presence, attention, and unconditional kindness were the currencies that truly mattered. Daniel realized that his life, though humble, had provided him the greatest wealth imaginable, the ability to touch hearts through sincerity and compassion. Lily realized that she could exist fully, be brave, and be loved, not just for who she was expected to be, but for who she truly was. And Elena Whitmore, watching both of them, realized that the lessons of love and connection were never too late to learn. The walls she had built around her daughter's life could remain, but they would no longer confine her heart. The final notes of the song lingered in the air as the crowd clapped and cheered, oblivious to the quiet miracle that had unfolded in their midst. Daniel, Lily, and Elena Whitmore shared a moment of profound understanding, one that would echo in their lives far beyond the gala, far beyond this night. A single dance, a single act of kindness had rewritten the story of 3 lives, and for each of them, the world was irrevocably changed.
The gala lights dimmed, leaving only the soft glow of chandeliers reflecting in polished marble. The music had faded, replaced by quiet murmurs of guests bidding each other farewell. Yet for Daniel, Lily, and Elena, the night was far from over. It had become a turning point, a quiet revolution of the heart, unseen by most, but impossible to ignore for those who truly mattered. Daniel helped Lily into her wheelchair with gentle care, the warmth between them lingering like a soft echo of the dance they had shared. "You were incredible tonight,"
he said softly, his voice steady but full of emotion. Never forget how brave you are. Lily's eyes glimmered. I won't. And thank you for noticing me. Really noticing me. Elena stepped closer, her usually composed face softened with emotion. She had spent decades building walls, around her wealth, around her daughter, around herself. But tonight, she realized that the strongest walls were useless without love and presence. Daniel, she said, voice catching slightly, I can never repay you for what you've done tonight. Not in gifts, not in words, but I can promise to let Lily have more moments like this. Moments where she is seen, truly seen, and allowed to grow beyond the confines of my fears. Daniel shook his head gently. No repayment is needed. Seeing her smile, seeing her brave, that's more than enough. That's why we do what we do, isn't it? Sometimes life gives you a chance to make someone feel alive. And tonight, I got that chance too. Lily reached out, squeezing Daniel's hand with a quiet, heartfelt grip. I wish you could meet Sophia, she said softly. I think you'd like her. Daniel smiled, thinking of his own daughter, asleep in their small apartment across the city, dreaming unaware of the miracle unfolding tonight. Maybe one day, he said. I think she'd like you too. Elena watched the exchange with a mixture of awe and humility. For years, she had measured life in contracts, numbers, and acquisitions. But tonight had reminded her that the most meaningful wealth was invisible. It was trust, kindness, and connection. She realized that letting others step in, allowing unexpected moments to happen, could bring more value to life than the grandest fortune ever could. As the guests trickled out of the ballroom, Daniel pushed Lily gently toward the exit, careful to keep her safe and comfortable. Elena followed, quietly observing the ease and authenticity of the interaction. She understood that the man before her, humble and unnoticed by the world, had just rewritten their lives, not with money or influence or social position, but with something infinitely more powerful, a genuine heart. Outside, the crisp night air kissed their faces. The city lights twinkled in the distance, but for a brief moment, the three of them existed in their own universe, defined not by wealth, status, or past mistakes, but by choice, compassion, and courage. Tonight was special, Elena said quietly, finally allowing herself to speak without control or calculation. I've spent so long trying to protect Lily, but maybe protection isn't everything. Sometimes it's letting her experience life, letting her be seen, letting her connect. Daniel nodded, feeling a quiet resonance in her words. Exactly. And it's those small moments, the acts of noticing, the small gestures of kindness that build a life worth living. That's the wealth that matters. Lily smiled, her eyes bright with newfound confidence. Can we do this again sometime? She asked. Daniel chuckled softly. Absolutely. Anytime you need to feel seen, I'll be there. Elena smiled too, her own walls softening. She realized that the future would not be about control, but about guidance, trust, and allowing her daughter to grow in a world beyond fear. And in that moment, she silently thanked the janitor for showing her what true courage and love looked like. As they parted ways that night, each carried something transformative. Lily carried hope and freedom. Daniel carried fulfillment and the joy of a life touched profoundly. And Elena carried a lesson she would never forget: the power of genuine human connection over any amount of wealth or influence. The gala faded into memory, but its impact endured. One dance, one act of kindness, one genuine moment of attention had rewritten the trajectory of 3 lives. And sometimes, that is all it takes to change everything. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video,
Share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe Soul and Heart Stories. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that reminds you that kindness, love, and connection are the greatest treasures we can share. Because sometimes, one small act can change a life forever.